Okay, so we are joined now from Brussels by a member of the European Parliament, Marietje Schaake. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Mrs. May is there having a conversation in Brussels. What is your opinion of how this is all going to play out?
Well, I mean, all bets are off. We had hoped to hear from the Prime Minister what the reason for an extension of the period would be, and we still haven't heard that. And I think it's absolutely fair that government leaders from all member states are now asking for more of a sense of what the extension would look like. And until then, it's hard to say whether there's a chance of any kind of agreement or meeting of minds.
Okay, so if there is an extension given, if there is an agreement to give Mrs. May a Hail Mary pass on the condition that her deal goes through Parliament, we've heard from the French leader that he doesn't think that's going to happen, then are we looking at an inevitability that there will be a crashing out next Friday?
Well, that would become more likely, and I think it is most unfortunate. I personally think Brexit in and of itself is most unfortunate, but now that this is where we're heading, let's please think about a parachute before jumping from the plane. And I think that the Brexiteers that are cheering on a hard Brexit and that sort of can't wait until this is all over with are quite reckless without acknowledging what the consequences and the potential chaos without a clear plan would be. And I think it is important that there are adults in the room that do look out for that bigger impact and want to avoid chaos and legal uncertainty for our citizens, our small and medium-sized enterprises, and for our future relation.
Yeah, I want to get to the impact if this happens in just a moment, but I just want to talk about this. If for some reason we get to Tuesday or Thursday and that Parliament says, listen, we're not okay with this third chance at a deal, is the EU then willing to step in with some other alternative parachute? And what would that be?
I've heard nothing of that kind. I think that the parachute is the withdrawal agreement. There's been a lot of energy and goodwill going into that, also to accommodate additional demands from the UK. At some point, this is what's on the table. 27 governments agree. One country is in a meltdown, and it is the UK. So I think that the answers and the clarity will have to come from London. I think that the EU 27 have done what they could at this point. I mean, negotiations are always an option, but you need to know where the other side is coming from. And frankly, I feel like the UK itself doesn't know what it wants right now.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to try and pin you down on this, because I think when you look at this big picture, it seems to be that this is not going to get through next week. There is a frustration among MPs. Mrs. May hit back at them, the very people she'll need to get through this deal. So then, again, I want to say, is there any other alternative, or are we looking at more increasingly likely that next Friday the UK is going to crash out of the EU, and then what happens?
Well, I'm afraid that this worst-case scenario is coming closer if there is not a majority of Parliament for an alternative or for the withdrawal agreement, if there is no concrete proposal from the British side about what an extension could lead to, what the demand would be, because an extension for more of the same, and I think we can all see it unfolding with every day that passes, is not leading to anything new. In fact, it is leading to more polarization and less meeting of minds. And so we cannot solve on the European side the British problems for them. The people there, the parliamentarians, have to come to their senses and understand what the consequences are of a hard Brexit otherwise. It's not what the EU 27 wants. I think there's been clarity and consistency in that message, but it is not in our hands at this moment.
So basically you're saying that there's not going to be a silver bullet offered by the EU. There's no alternative plan or offer that could help Mrs. May out of this predicament.
But I mean, an offer of sorts would have to have a direction. It would have to have some kind of goal. It would have to have some kind of landing zone. And that is not articulated whatsoever by the British Parliament or by the Prime Minister. In fact, there's only an articulation of an extension where the message from Brussels has been consistent in saying, if you wish to ask for an extension, there has to be a proposal of what it's for. It's not there. There's been an extension beyond the date, which the European Commission had recommended would be the limit, namely the European elections. So I feel like there is not really an appreciation for what is needed in order to even get to an olive branch or a kind of solution from the European side. I think there is absolute willingness, but there's just no playing of ball on the British side.
You've been preparing for a hard Brexit. What is key for you from Europe's side in terms of preparations, if this happens?
Well, there have been all kinds of engagements with the private sector, with citizens, and there's an urging for businesses to prepare. We will have to adopt all kinds of legislative proposals to make sure that we have legal certainty. So there's a whole host of mitigating measures being taken, and every sector, every person should also inform him or herself and cannot wait to see how this plays out and then potentially only start thinking about measures that need to be taken. In the Netherlands, the country that I know best, there have been public broadcasting campaigns going on. The government has been urging people to make their own preparations and their own assessments, and we'll have to do what we can to make sure that this is as smooth as possible, despite undoubtedly a lot of bumps in the road that we will all be facing.
Marietje, Schaake, thanks so much for joining us, giving us your perspective there from Brussels. Thank you.